And now we have live images and the latest updates regarding Ecuador's situation. Let's go there.
Según la ley, o si no la cumple el presidente de la República, entonces estamos en qué? En una situación de incumplimiento pues, de una decisión.
So we are in a situation of non-fulfillment after the decision by the National Assembly of last year. We've done everything possible, every possible approach, and we have talked. And Mr. President, through Francisco, will need to tell us if he's going to meet the decree concerning the public bank of the entire Ecuador is up to $10,000, and we've been fighting for the last 5-6 years approximately in a mandate of our previous comrades. Second, which is not expressed in the minutes, the president said that he was going to subsidize 50% of the price, and we have said that the agricultural systems do not start with urea. This is a move ahead. This subsidy for agriculture, organic agriculture, that must be transformed into a direct subsidy for producers, because the president has announced before. He said he was going to subsidize 50% of that. So we actually need to seek for a subsidy that will transform into a direct subsidy for producers, agricultural producers. And finally, we tell through the media, a month ago, only in Peru, they just passed a law that enables and demands the private banks to reprogram the debts of the people. This is a law that comes after the pandemics. These must also be done by the National Assembly as an initiative of the executive, because this was the picture in Peru. The problem is that 18 months after the debts, people have these debts with the private bank. We have economic reactivation. The agricultural subsidy in Peru, they are trying to seek for a more democratic formula to try to find an agricultural subsidy. So that means that will be justice, and we must go on this example among many other things that we can discuss in technical tables further ahead. But these are the fundamental issues that we must try to reach. What I actually want is that to be included in the minutes. I mean, the decree, we need to know when that decree will be issued, because they've been postponing it. So in this minute, they actually must say when they will implement it. And the juridical secretary has actually asked us how many of us, and we actually do not handle statistics. That's the business of the banks. So I do believe the minister should actually tell us when this decree of condonation of the debt will be in place.
Queridos amigos, amigas,
dear friends, Ecuadorian people, I'd like to express my greetings this morning. Despite the fact that we are tired, we still have enough strength to continue moving ahead. Our country is very similar to the land of Canaan, but what we do not have are the effective government that are able to understand the needs of the next of kin and the hunger that we all suffer. This is the major problem that we have. Ecuador is not a poor country, but the government of Ecuador is the one that has led us to this extreme. This is the highest point that has brought us here. The fight during this year and during these last 18 days, we are actually here for that. It is not just the last 18 days. We were born fighting, and we will continue fighting, and we will give our lives if necessary in this struggle. We have been claiming peace and justice not only during these days. The fruit of peace is justice, the result of peace. Justice, you need several times for these times to plan it and implement it, to implement benefits, to reach the corners of a country where the state of Ecuador has not actually acted. Not only this government, but previous government as well. We need governments that are aware of the needs of the Ecuadorian people. Mr. President, Mr. Minister, we hope that these days, 18 days of actions, do not rest unnoticed. But we hope that this can go into the projects to be executed and implemented. This is not just my struggle. This is a struggle of millions of Ecuadorian people that have been for these 18 days. So this is visible. I'd like also to thank the people who have humbly been with us. I thank you all for this solidarity from very early hours and in the cold nights to support our people. But we would actually like to express the fact that we need to put an end to racism. When we enter the tables of dialogues right here in front of us, one man who was an employee of Quito's electric enterprise, he was insulting us, treating us as Indians. This is very shameful. But we, the Aboriginal and Native people, are not going to die. There will be many more to be born in the future, Native people. We actually thank the Native professionals who are actually getting involved into their own enterprises. So we are actually able to create our own enterprises. We are working people. We are people who live together and look after security in our very communities. And for this reason, we have fewer problems by delinquency. Mr. Minister of Government, I'd like to express here that the task of every one of us, the main problem that we have in our country is lack of safety and delinquency. We must start working and reinforce security. It's not just placing 30,000 policemen or military, but instill in our families ethical values. That's the task of a state and mothers and fathers. And for this reason, we need decent classrooms and professors that have decent ethics. What's the guarantee that we have if we do not have teachers with the decency that we require? We need to work a lot, and we do not want any more scandals. We have made it possible for the dialogue. Many thought that we had lost, we need to return home, but we expressed that the point of dialogue should be maintained, and we have slept in this place trying to regain the dialogue, because we are a country of peace and a country that seeks for dialogue. We don't want to make it any longer. We have attended mediation with Catholic Church, and the rest points of demand stay at the technical table. Nobody is going to inherit. No, we are not going to negotiate through other ways, through other means. We're not selling, we're not negotiating. We are in daylight in front of authorities, in front of the Catholic Church. I would like to present, by the way, two evangelical fathers from the Semi-South Seminar. They are supporting us in our negotiations to try to reach our claims. So we are going to prevail in our demands. Oil. Ecuadorian Episcopal has moved towards us. This fact, for many of us, this is going to be little. For many of us, this is to think wrong. We need to fight from our territory. We have abandoned our families and children for these last days. And I support the words of the father of the Catholic Church, what he said. I must say this is in the hands of mediation. We need to find peace, and these are the people that will provide solutions. So I must say that if oil was at $2.55, today we have it at $2.40. The 10 cents that have been reduced, we couldn't even reach 20. Those who forget about this manifestation, at least they have saved $100 thanks to our fight. This afternoon, I'd like to say that everything has happened during these last days. But we don't want to see it as a loser or winner. There must be a conciliation, because we all have Ecuadorian blood, and we must claim for peace to prevail. And we must fight for reconciliation. We invite evangelical people, Catholic people, because we need to seek spirituality. Long live Ecuador, and long live the organizations. Good afternoon.
Compañeros, compañeras, presidentes de FEINE,
dear comrades, presidents of Seine, Conaie, and other structures, Minister of Government, authorities present, pastors of the Episcopal Conference, the Salesian universities, Catholic universities, delegates of Pope Francis, comrades, friends, and people from different mass organizations and different mass media. All together, people of goodwill. We are peoples and nationalities of fights, resistance, and freedom. I am here on behalf of the nationalities and peoples of the Ecuadorian Amazon. And I am accompanied by comuneros, organizations, federations, nationalities, and their structures.
compañeros y compañeras, señores autoridades. Y no he venido a claudicar la lucha de mis hermanos caídos.
We have come to continue the fight of our previous brothers,
Discriminados, entre otros, de mis hermanos asesinados. Vengo a reclamar
we come
los derechos
once again to claim for the rights of the
de
Ecuadorian
las
Amazon.
comunidades fronterizas.
From the frontiers,
Hemos sido excluidos.
communities, we have been excluded for all this period of time from the creation of the Republic of Ecuador.
Señores autoridades, señores autoridades, tenemos que corregir
And we must
estos errores históricos.
put an end to these historical errors.
No es posible que en el siglo XXI
It is no longer possible that in the 21st century
nos escuchen.
it is
Tenemos que
not
levantarnos,
possible
hacer levantamientos,
anymore to do actions like this in order to be heard.
y muertos, compañeros y compañeras autoridades. Si en este proceso de lucha,
If
proceso de diálogo,
all along this process of struggle and
a
dialogue,
dialogar con resultados,
if we had sat down
hubiéramos estado aquí,
to
compañeros y
talk with
compañeras,
results,
y
we
señores
wouldn't
autoridades.
be here. We would have avoided
Vayamos conversando
all of these
de
days.
igual a igual.
This is a
para todos,
historical
la justicia
mistake.
para las
We need to
nacionalidades
talk
de la Amazonía
as
ecuatoriana.
equals,
No es
and
normal
justice
que exista justicia
is for everybody.
para un sector privilegiado del Ecuador.
Justice should not just be guaranteed for a privileged sector of
La
Ecuador.
Amazonía sangra,
The Amazon is bleeding day by day.
y nadie ha dicho nada.
All kinds of situations
Dicen que todo está bien.
and oil leaks, and people say it is
Nuestros
okay.
ríos, nuestras cascadas, nuestras lagunas, nuestros territorios.
Our
Ya no
areas,
podemos
our
cultivarlos
territories are contaminated,
porque
and we can
están
no
contaminados.
longer grow in them, given their
Nosotros
contamination
vivimos de
and their
caza y
pollution.
pesca, señores autoridades, y los peces están contaminados de petróleo.
Fish are also
Nos alimentamos de
contaminated
eso,
by
nos
oil,
enfermamos.
and we eat them, and
Y
we
no hay
become
escuelas.
sick.
No hay colegios,
We don't have schools.
no hay hospitales de primera
We don't have
en los territorios de las
first aid
nacionalidades,
hospitals
en las comunidades fronterizas.
in the frontier communities.
Nosotros las nacionalidades,
But I also like to say there are nationalities, and I
somos
talk as
quienes
a
cuidamos
people from the
la
Amazon.
frontera viva, y no nos pueden decir que somos vándalos,
We
criminales,
cannot accept
narcotraficantes,
anymore being
porque
called
nuestros territorios,
as criminals
nuestro
or
orden
drug
cuida
dealers,
que no existan ahí vándalos ni narcotraficantes, pero sí en las ciudades grandes que las autoridades
because in
no han
our
hecho,
areas
señoras y
we do not see these delinquency, but we do see them in the big cities.
para lo cual, para que exista paz y tranquilidad,
In order to have
un diálogo digno,
peace, we
un
need
diálogo sin
a
trampa,
plain
un
and
diálogo de
full
respeto,
dialogue of resistance and respect.
planteamos lo siguiente:
And we state the following:
no criminalización ni persecución a los líderes, lideresas
leaders
que hemos venido
of
luchando
our organizations should no longer be criminalized or be
con la
accused
condición de la verdad
of
que se investigue
delinquency.
qué pasó con
We must create
los hermanos
a
11
commission of
fallecidos
truth
y también de este
to
paro
actually find out what happened with our 11 people that have died, that were killed.
nacional. En el decreto, en el acta, tiene que constar, señor ministro,
In the
señores
minutes
autoridades,
that you will pass,
reforma
we need to see
del
reforms.
artículo 66
We need to see reforms of Article 66 in the special territory of the Amazon, economic funds for nationalities and people. With that fund, we need to implement the plans of life
pueblos y nacionalidades
that
de la
we
Amazonía
have
ecuatoriana.
worked as peoples and nationalities of the Amazon, because this has been proposed for
Sobre todo en la Amazonía,
democratic
los
institutions
gobiernos
of the
seccionales
country.
nada han hecho por nosotros, solo ellos
But
han
actually,
llevado,
in
y
fact,
nuestros
they have
pueblos y
done
nacionalidades
nothing for us.
seguimos abandonados,
And we continue
compañeros
under
y
a state of a
compañeras.
complete abandonment.
También, pues, sostenemos la propuesta inicial
We
del precio de los
sustain
combustibles.
the first proposal of price of oil, 40 cents
Compañeros y compañeras.
is our claim.
Derogatoria también del decreto 151.
And we also
Porque
urge
¿saben por qué? Porque
the
es
elimination of Article
inconstitucional.
151 because we believe it is anti-constitutional.
Y digo al mundo,
And I say to the
mucho
world
se dice de que sí se consulta a
that
las nacionalidades.
it is
En ningún momento nos han
believed
consultado. Se tiene que
that we have
realizar
been
consultas
consulted on
previamente
this, but
informadas
we have
y de
actually not been
consentimiento.
consulted
Señores
on
autoridades,
these matters, so they
por
do
eso
not
se
have
tiene
our
que
consent.
derogar y luego
So
construir
that
los
article must
otros
be
articulados,
eliminated,
pero con la presencia
and another
de las
article
nacionalidades.
should
Cuando
be
no hay presencia de las
constructed
nacionalidades,
with the
cuando
presence
se
of
emiten
nationalities. And
decretos
if there is no
759,
nationality
y cuando no somos
present,
consultados,
and when
salimos a
we
pelear
are not
y nos dicen de todo,
consulted,
nos
this is
discriminan,
when we come
nos
out to
acribillan,
fight,
nos,
and this is when we
persiguen,
get
nos
criticized
criminalizan,
and
compañeros y
persecuted.
compañeras. Por eso,
So,
desde la Amazonía ecuatoriana,
for this
estamos
reason,
aquí
from the
para hacer
Amazon,
vocería.
we tell you
Dejen
that
que mis
we
hermanos y
are
hermanas
here
de las
together with
comunidades
my
fronterizas
brothers
me
and
están viendo,
sisters.
porque soy su vocero y vengo acá y no a claudicar la lucha
I
de mis
am
hermanos y
their
hermanas de las
spokesman, and I
comunidades
am here
fronterizas.
to claim
Muchas
for
gracias.
our rights.
Callaritica, Tucuya, Taita, Mamacunata, Musucunata, Huambracunata, Allí, Chungumanta, Allí, Chichinispa, Napani. Compañeras y compañeros, que viva la lucha.
Long live struggle.
Primero quiero agradecer
First,
enormemente
I would like to thank,
a nombre de la Conaie, nuestras
on behalf
organizaciones fraternas,
on behalf of
conocidas,
Conaie and similar
pero también
organizations,
a todos nuestros hermanos
and also
que se juntaron,
to
juntamos
all the brothers who
para
got
llevar una lucha por
together
nuestros derechos.
here in order to conduct the
Enmarcados
struggle for our
en el
rights.
derecho a la resistencia reconocida en la
The
Constitución
right
de
to
la República.
resistance recognized in the
Nuestros hermanos
constitutions.
de los barrios de Quito,
Our brothers in the neighborhoods of
ganaderos,
Quito, farmers, producers, cattle raisers, transport,
para desvirtuar en esta mesa
in
el
order
diálogo,
to present in this table
cualquier
the
posibilidad
dialogue
de instalar esta idea del terrorismo.
and to eliminate any possibility of creating an idea of terrorism.
Resuelven el problema,
The policies
entonces,
of the state that
los
respond
pueblos
to
se
this
levantan.
problem
No hay que
is
mirar la forma,
what
hay que
makes
mirar el fondo.
people to
El fondo
race.
significa que las políticas de los estados están siendo terroristas.
So
Por lo tanto,
when
me
we
parece
see
importante
things like
que
this,
podamos tener claridades en este proceso.
we need to be clear in this process.
Quiero agradecer
I'd
al
like to-
señor Luis Cabrera,
I'd like to thank
nuestro
Mr.
presidente de
Luis
la Conferencia
Cabrera, former
Episcopal Ecuatoriana,
president of the
Monseñor
Ecuadorian
Alfredo
Episcopal
vicepresidente de la
Commission,
conferencia.
the vice presidents of the conference as well.
Saludar al señor Francisco Jiménez,
I'd like to
ministro de
greet
Gobierno,
Francisco Jimenez, Minister of Government,
al señor Mauricio López de CELAM,
Mauricio
a la
Lopez
hermana
from
Digna
Selam,
Erazo, misionera Laurita, al
Digna,
señor Juan Carlos Holguín, canciller del
and
Ecuador,
Mr. Juan Carlos
al
Holguín,
reverendo padre Juan
Foreign
Cárdenas,
Minister of Ecuador,
rector de la Universidad Salesiana, y al
Re-
reverendo padre Fernando Ponce, rector de la
Reverend
Universidad
Fernando Ponce
Católica del Ecuador,
from
al
the
señor Iván
Catholic
Correa,
entity of
secretario de
Ecuador, Ivan
Administración
Correa,
Pública.
Secretary of Public Administration.
Y quiero que me regalen un fuerte aplauso para nuestras organizaciones
And I would
ciudadanas
like to hear
de la Costa
a
Sierra Amazonía, de
strong
las tres
applause
organizaciones
for
del
our
país, la
organizations
FENDE, la FENOCID,
present here,
la CONAIE, con nuestras tres regionales,
Conaie
nuestro
and the
compañero
other
Javier
organizations
Vargas,
that
nuestro
are present.
compañero Carlos Sucuchañay, nuestro presidente, y compañeros de las diferentes nacionalidades que en la costa también
As well
nos hemos puesto
as
de pie.
those who are from different nationalities. In this moment,
Vamos a suscribir un acto.
we are going to write an act,
¿A
a
partir
minute.
de qué?
After
El día lunes
the fact that just until Monday we were moving ahead in the dialogue, and suddenly, but actually we wanted it to be proper, and we had sustaining common agreement on goodwill, and we have sustained these dialogues until today. What I must actually reject, Mr. Minister of Government, we should never resort to a warmongering situation in our country. We must always try to sit down at the table, and we must guarantee that our words are heard. So this got confused on Monday night. Everyone in Ecuador actually saw what happened. An action that should have never happened, because we were in the table, we were expecting. So I ask that no authority is entitled to underestimate any one of us. I am the president of Conaie, and it is not possible that a power of the state expresses something like what we heard. I want to make this clear. I believe it is important to have absolute responsibility over the facts that create this level of discontent. I don't want. In this country, we have the exercise of democracy guaranteed. We have a representative democracy in our country. Direct democracy, where Ecuadorian people have the right for consultation, direct consultation. But we also have the community democracy, which guarantees the right for this procedure for the election of our authorities. Imagine on Monday we were very vexed. And then the words that we use must be carefully chosen. In this point, I like to inform that we're open to dialogue, and we had requested, the three presidents of our structures had requested the Pope, to the Salesian University and the Catholic University in a direct way. We had asked for the dialogue to continue, and as well the United Nations organization, which we believe they must have been here as well. We had asked that we should not be middlemen, but we should be guarantors of the process of peace. And in this sense, it is important for me to say that we need to do a lot in order to build a multinational state that actually guarantees the right of all. But we don't see that yet present. This is not an effort only from the Aboriginal population. This is the need of all kinds of societies, black, white, mixed. We must make an effort to construct that society, which we believe should be better. So for this reason, I'd like to say that we have actually stated our points, 3 spaces, the points that have actually moved ahead, and I'd like to recognize this. reduction of 10 cents, which is no longer 10 cents, it is 15 cents. At least this cents was the result of our struggle. Next, increase of the human development bonus, not as representative, but it is $5. Well, we so we want this bonus to be applied also for people who used to have it and no longer have it. So this was another claim. And besides, in the state of emergency of health, we demanded an increase of at least $200 million. It is very little what we have asked, but we must actually start by this. And the multi-bilingual culture development, we must ask for this. Every country, every nationality must have in their own language all of these claims and demands. So this is part of this process too. We have a 50% of URIA as a result of these. For URIA, we understand potato, but in this case we have included also cattle raising. We must control this. We must see to the prices. We must do a follow-up in the territory. And we have also asked for the condonation of credit up to $3,000. And I believe that apart from this number, in this case, there is a law that has been approved and is in the hands of the President of the Republic. So we hope that this law is not going to be part of this, but we just want it so that it can be coordinated. And finally, the agricultural credits up to $5,000, 1% interest up to 30 years. So that would imply a budget of $200 million. We must work to guarantee that actually those who need it can access these funds, because there are members of our communities that are punished by the financial system and cannot access credit. So thanks to this struggle, we can manage our economy, which is the most operational part of the economy and must be analyzed on a daily basis. So these are the things that we have achieved during these days. What are the most complicated topics? 3 of them: oil or fuel, mining. In the sense of the fuels, if we accept, we will be moving for these. After assessing on our part, we have said it is not an expectation for what we came here to fight. So we said 40 cents, national government said 10 cents. So in this sense, there is a position, there is a decision by the Commission between what the government was hearing and what the parts were saying. So that's why I say the efforts that we have made in this point, it will be difficult for us to accept these 15 cents, but there is a middle assessment that gave this result. Our real expectation was at least 40 cents, but we do understand and we want to find a solution today to the problems that are being generated as a result of this. In this point, it's not a common agreement. However, there is a decision. Article 95 is our second problem. And mining, which is the third topic we had requested, ancestral territories of our populations. So we believe this is the only missing point in our negotiations. So we need to coordinate this to have an effective solution. And we must also work in the issues of CTA reform, Article 66, and this was part of a dialogue, and it became public so that it can go into the National Assembly. So that people from the Amazon region can benefit from the resources that are originated in their own zones. So these are some of the initial commitments that we put on the table on Monday so that it can be present in the act somewhere. So these will be the weak points. But there are also other points like financial point of view. But we have not talked only about the public bank. And it is being assessed during 90 days. So we have presented points that must be implemented in 90 days. What I want to say, in a fight like in 2019, we were happy with the decree resulting from that time. But now there are other topics that we need to discuss. Any government that comes should not present our claims as an attempt to destroy the system. We need to let the government know and be aware that if they do not comply with their responsibilities, we will go back to the struggles and to the strikes. So we request the national government is that what we want to make clear is that we want our claims to be heard. Thank you very much. Let me just make this point clear. Suddenly we see this minute as if this had been agreed. The Commission has actually raised this minute. This is what I want to have explicitly clear. So we need to be responsible with the country. Some will say yes, some will say no. But we have been 18 days of strike. We should not be irresponsible with the country. So consequently, I ask if we need a little bit more of time, but this issue must be resolved today.
Muy bien, yo quisiera en ese momento proponer a las partes
Very good.
firmar el acta compromiso.
I'd like to ask both sides to sign this act of commitment, because from the moment we receive indication from the native population and government to participate in this table, given the importance and urgency, we started to do our work. So our work implied talking to both sides. This is our role right here, being in the middle, because we're not judges. Let me say this has been the work of an entire night to try to reach consensus. And I apologize for media, but since some things were not clear, we actually met one more time. We call the native organizations in such a way that this act has been agreed by the side. So I propose to sign these minutes, and then we may continue discussing this a little later. So you as mediators should propose this for the good of the country and for the good of everybody. So I have proposed myself to be coherent with our job and with our decision. This is the proposal, and this is the moment to sign this document, being aware that there are many things that are still to be debated. So if we sign the act, we will guarantee that everything here will be agreed upon.
Vamos a pedir por favor que extienda la palabra el ministro también. Con eso yo les voy a pedir, por favor, no generemos de pronto algún altercado. Si necesitamos juntar un momento, lo haremos. Compañeros, por favor, los dirigentes. Les pido, compañeros, para que esta situación tenemos que dar una salida.
So,
en esta parte,
one more time I ask you to try to find a solution to this situation. So I also ask you to sign this document. There is a political participation here. There is a responsibility over our heads. So we are going to ask for sensitivity, but we have reached a point of agreement and we need to sign now, not to put at stake everything that has been agreed upon.
Señores representantes de la Conferencia Episcopal,
representative of the Episcopal Conference,
Monseñor Luis Cabrera,
Monseñor Luis Cabrera, David de la Torres,
señor presidente de Conaie, Leonidas Isa,
Mr. President of Conaie, Leonidas Isa,
señor presidente de la FENOCIN,
Mr. President of FENOCIN, Dari Espinosa,
señor presidente de la FENAIE, Marlon
Vargas,
Padre Cárdenas, hermana Digna Erazo, señor secretario jurídico Fabián Pozo,
Mr. Juridical Secretary.
Un saludo también al obispo Jimmy Argüello,
greetings to
y al pastor Duvaleda, que están aquí acompañándonos.
The bishops and pastors
Queridos
that are
amigos,
here with us.
Señores, miembros de los medios de comunicación.
Members of mass media.
Hoy no hay ganadores.
There are no winners
y
today
perdedores individuales.
or individual losers.
Hoy el único ganador debe ser el Ecuador.
The only winner today should be Ecuador.
Estas jornadas de junio,
These days of June
una lección para todos. Y cada quien
have been very tense,
debe poder sacar sus
and
propias
everyone
conclusiones.
should be able to draw their own conclusions.
Sabemos
We are aware
que tenemos aún un país con muchas fracturas,
that we have a country with
con muchos problemas,
fractures and problems,
con injusticias
with injustice that need to be resolved, and with important sectors of the population that are still very relegated. How to explain these to those who were in power during years and were not able to solve the problems? However, and actually what they did was to deepen these problems. We know that the task to be done by the government of President Guillermo Lasso is willing to conduct this task. We are a democratically elected government that thinks about the poorest people and who is aware of the lives that those who are least favored have had. We are willing to continue or to return to the task of building a nation of peace, a nation of freedom, a respectful nation, and a fair nation. In a country where everyone can provide an opinion without persecutions or segregation, and where everyone can have the right to progress and live in peace. Violence should not establish itself in Ecuador. Our difference should not become any deeper. This is not an end today. Today it is a beginning. Today is a beginning, rather. It is the first day of reconciliation, national reconciliation. This is the importance of this signature. Everything cannot be present in those documents because there are many more problems that as a country we have. But we must put an end to this. And we must plan our future in keeping with what will be agreed today. We have to go beyond violence. And we have to continue despite the fact that there are some topics not in these documents but that will appear. Because this is a very serious problem. And we have also been able to draw conclusions from these days. Many things have occurred and a lot has been said. This is not a perfect situation. We've been for a year in the government and we have 3 more years to respond to you. And we will be engaged in these tasks with convictions, humbly, This is the Ecuador that we all deserve and that we all dream about. And you must be assured that we will be able to take good decisions. We must move ahead, facing history, and we need to solve our differences and settle our differences. We must tell the country clearly that we are able to build this Ecuador that we hope for, but not only those who are alive, but those who are falling in between.
La respetamos,
We respect this struggle.
la entendemos,
We understand this struggle.
pero así como ustedes,
But just like you,
sabemos que hoy tenemos una responsabilidad más grande
we know
que
that
trasciende
today we have
el cargo temporal que hoy
a
representamos.
strong responsibility that goes beyond the position that we represent.
Les pido de favor,
I ask
somos
you,
sociedades colectivas,
as collective societies,
somos los que sostenemos decisiones colectivas.
we are the
Les voy a
ones
pedir,
who
sobre
sustain
todo en algunos
collective
puntos neurálgicos
decisions.
que todavía sigue habiendo tensión.
I am going
Yo les pido a
to
los
still
compañeros de la estructura de la Conaie que
talk
podamos
about
salir en el patio
some points
y ahí
that are
podamos,
strong.
conversar, por favor,
So
compañeros.
I ask people at
Y pido a
Conaie
la
that we
mesa
move
interventora,
onto
por
the
favor, que
patio
me
so that
ayuden.
we can
Regálenme 10 a 15
continue
minutos.
discussing, and I ask the table for another 15 minutes. I won't be asking you anymore.
De la P2C, los puntos más críticos
So the most critical points that we have right now, we need to
un poco
get together and consolidate them.
Pedimos, por favor, no está firmado nada.
Nothing
Los medios de comunicación no den cobertura que puede
has been signed, and we ask the media not to provide any information so far.
Pedimos de una manera especial a los dirigentes de la FEINE, por favor, en este mismo lugar, si pueden venir acá, por favor, dirigentes.
Indigenous organizations of Ecuador, as well as social organizations, offer a press conference and announce they reached an agreement with the government with the mediation of the Episcopal Church, meaning the end of demonstrations they sustained for 18 days. As part of the agreements, all governors must increase control operations to prevent and eradicate speculative processes. The health system is under emergency. There must be compensatory public policies for rural and urban sectors. The government must reduce the price of gasoline by $0.10. Also, Decree 95 on hydrocarbons is repealed and the Article 151 is reformed. Exploitation in archaeological sites, protected areas, and water protection areas will be regulated. A dialogue table will be set up to resolve pending issues. Within 90 days, the presence of state authorities will be guaranteed. The presence of the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador, the Federation of Indigenous Evangelists, and the National Confederation of Indigenous and Ecuadorian African organizations agreed to cease mobilizations and gradually return to the territories. The national government agrees to lift the state of exception in effect as peace is established in the territories. Additionally, there is a further reduction of $5 on diesel, extra and domestic fuels. The indigenous leaders also condemned racism and other discriminatory practices from the government, as well as violence, and demanded better salaries for the underprivileged sectors, as teachers, agricultural workers, and other public servants. We stress this information, this is so important. After 18 days of demonstrations, the demonstrating and mobilized sectors in Ecuador reached an agreement with the government of President Guillermo Lasso.